Before we get into the problems, I want to just give you one more analytical look at how you can look at FIFO and LIFO, and it's in the form of buckets. You know, if you think about taking a bucket and filling it with water, if we're looking at the FIFO version of that bucket, the water comes in and it, of course, fills layer by layer up to the top. And if we're looking at FIFO, the first things that we put in that bucket, those first few layers, are the first ones that we're going to sell or leave. So if I stop and say, what's still here and what's gone? The oldest stuff is, of course, sold. The newest stuff is still here, if we're looking at FIFO. On the complete flip side, that same bucket is being filled. You guys know the science behind filling a bucket. It's not going to hover at the top. It's going to go to the bottom and layer by layer fill up. With water, it wouldn't be layered, but you get the idea. Okay. However, if we're looking at LIFO, that last stuff that came in, if this were layered, that's the stuff that's sold or gone. That bottom stuff is still here because notice where the spigot is. It's never even grabbing the bottom. This, if you had to answer the question, which is a more natural process, this is very much the most natural process. Because if we were rocking LIFO, would this bottom stuff ever get sold? Not really. And it's just collecting dust, or it's a liability to you because it could get stolen or broken or go bad. Okay. But what I want you to take away from all of this, because we have to talk about the stuff, but FIFO, LIFO, and average is not really about the stuff. It's about recognizing what we paid for our oldest stuff or our newest stuff. The TV example that the book laid out early on, all the TVs are identical. Do the customers even know which one we bought, older or newest? No. We just, from our inventory management perspective, we have to take a look at what did that old stuff cost, what did the new stuff cost? Okay. I used to teach, and I'm going to still draw this even though it's kind of silly. I used to teach the concept of FIFO floats and LIFO sundaes. So if we're talking ice cream, if I go buy a float, they'll put the ice cream in it, and it's called the float because the ice cream is floating at the top, and then all the root beer's in here, and then they put a straw in there. Well, if you stick a straw on a float, it goes to the bottom, and it's going to take the stuff from the bottom out first. Versus a sundae. I'm an old Dairy Queen girl, so I know my ice cream lingo. A sundae is going to fill, here I'll give you the Dairy Queen curl there. And we've maybe got some, I don't know what kind of sundae is green topping, but whatever. It's really hard to get at if you're eating a sundae, this right here. Typically a sundae will be spooned off from the top. So you're going to eat the most recent stuff that went in there. Okay, so buckets and ice cream examples. I hope one of them is like, oh, yeah, I finally get it. Okay. So now let's take 2 days worth of talking about this and put it into action. Talking about stuff, but really it's more about the dollar amount. So have your notebook handy for your 9 steps that I'm going to show you. The first time I'm going to go really slow. And I'm going to talk about the steps, then we'll go do them, and then I'll come back to the list. So by the time we're done with the whole problem, this list of 9 will be filled out. Remember, this is about selling stuff, but it's more about putting a dollar amount on what's still here and what's sold. To calculate FIFO, LIFO, or average, you're going to use these 9 steps. The first thing we have to do is determine how many units we even have available to sell. Willie's can't make money unless there's food on the shelves. Runnings can't make money unless there is food. I meant to say Town and Country, excuse me. Town and Country can't make money unless there's stuff to sell. And so to first figure out what's our total available for sale, in our first example, it's a little fuzzy up here. Yours is probably a little less fuzzy. How many total units do we have available for sale at Linda's Boards? How many total surfboards or snowboards in this case do we have available for sale? They gave us the number. 141. Sometimes they won't give you the number. Sometimes they'll only give you the units and the unit cost, and you have to figure out all the totals. So that's why I put it on the list. Even though here is our total right here, 141, sometimes you have to go hunt for that number. Okay, the second item on the list, you have to figure out or determine total cost available for sale. So not only are we looking at the stuff that's available for sale, we have to figure out how much that stuff is costing us. And the reason I have these 2 items on the list is sometimes you have to do the math to get them there. Okay? If I go back to my example though, here's our total cost. You basically take units times unit cost to equal your total cost. I think that's obvious, but maybe put those little operators in there. So do we have to do anything with step 1 or 2? Nope, they've done it for us. This is a key factor here in not screwing up these numbers, number 3 and 4. We have to take a look at the units that sold. So we're still talking stuff at this point. This is the stuff. The units sold. And we also need to figure out the units that are still here. A little bit more about that. Units sold, they're gone. The customers left with them, or they were shipped out. The units still here, they're still considered inventory. Whether they're on the sales floor, oh, I can't keep writing over there. Whether they're on the sales floor or whether they're in the warehouse. At Superior Westmore is a pile of sheet metal that they're going to make into something still considered inventory. Yes. Raw goods, goods in progress, or of course the finished product. So let's go back. Oops. Let's read a little bit. Linda's Board sells a snowboard expert. Linda's Board sells a snowboard expert. That is, so this is only one surfboard. That is snowboard. That is popular with snowboard enthusiasts. Information related to the purchases of expert snowboards during September is shown below. During the same month, how many sold? Remember, we got to figure out sold and we got to figure out still here. How many sold? During the same month, 121 sold. So what we're going to do is simply take 141 minus 121, and that's what's sold, to figure out number 4. We still have 20 that are still here. So basically that subtraction to equal how many are still here goes back to steps 3 and 4 on our checklist. Have we done anything with FIFO LIFO yet? No, we're just getting our ducks in a row. Okay, what I want to do now is, and this is probably not done in the book, this is me just trying to help you out. I want you, and I'm just going to erase that. I want you to say FIFO right here, and I want you to write LIFO on the other side. We're actually going to mark what is sold and what is still here. So go update your notes. In step 5, we are going to mark what's sold and what's still here. FIFO. The oldest stuff is gone or sold. The newest stuff is still here. My bucket example where the spigot was at the bottom, as that spigot filled up, the oldest stuff is going out, the newest stuff is still at the top. LIFO, the newest stuff is sold and the oldest stuff is still sitting at the bottom of the bucket. I'm kind of running out of room, but I'll put my disclaimer right here. Remember, it's really not dealing with stuff. It's not really about the stuff. Not the stuff that we're concerned about, rather the dollar amounts attached with shush and sold. So how much is the stuff that's still here costing us? How much is the stuff that's gone costing us? Now the reason I have a big line there is that's basically phase 1. So FIFO. Let's figure out what's sold. If I'm dealing with FIFO, are we selling our September 1st stuff or our September 26th stuff? Remember, with FIFO, sold is the earliest, the oldest stuff's gone. So are we selling 26 or are we selling 50? Oldest stuff. Give me a number. 26. Okay, so I'm going to use all of that 26. That's gone. Is 26 the same as 140 or 121? No. I'm going to use all of that 45. That's gone. I'm going to use all of that 20. That's gone. So what's 26 plus 45 plus 20? Well, we really only need 30 of that next purchase, and that will equal what's sold. How much is left? What's shush? On September 26th, what's shush? If we sold 30, but we had purchased 50, how much is still here? 20. Well, look at that. There's our 20 that's still here. So we basically took that 50, because we only needed 30 to get to the 121. The rest forces it to be equal, which is fabulous. Okay. Let's calculate. I'll do a different color here. Let's do LIFO. We still are shooting for that 121 because we're figuring out what's sold. When we when we calculate based on LIFO, are we looking at the oldest stuff gone or the newest stuff gone? Newest. So we'd use all of that 50. We'd use all of the 20. We'd use all of the 45. So 20 plus 50 plus 45. How much do we need to dip into what we sold from our old stuff? Just 5. Because those factors equal 121. Excuse me, 6. I knew that wasn't shaking out my math. And then what's left, of course, is 20. Now it's time to move into phase 2. We've figured out everything. Now it's time to go to phase 2. In phase 2, we are going to calculate the cost, and circle, underline, do whatever you need to do there, of the inventory that's still here, and then calculate the cost of inventory that was sold. There is a little equation that you do in number 7, which we'll get to, but let's start with number 6. So as I just described, we're going to figure out the cost of what's still here using FIFO, and then we're going to figure out the cost of stuff that's gone. All right, what's still here? How many things? We started with 141. We sold 121. How many things are left? 20. Thank you. So 20 are still here. Now if we're looking at FIFO, remember we sold this one. We sold this one. We sold this one. We sold 30 of the 50 purchased, and we've determined that 20 are still here. At how much are we going to value what the stuff is still here? We sold all the oldest stuff, the newest stuff still here. 105. Which then equals 2,100. That is the cost of the stuff that's still here based on FIFO, if we're selling the old stuff and the new stuff is here. The next thing we need to do, according to our notes, or step number 7, we need to calculate the cost of what's sold. That involves a little math. We have to take a look at cost of goods available minus cost of goods still here. Which will equal cost of goods. Tell me what we're going to plug in. What letter are we going to put in there? What are we trying to figure out in number 7? Cost of goods sold. Thank you. Do you see why we had to do all of that other stuff to get at cost of goods sold? We had to figure out what was still here and how much that was costing us to roll into this one. So this is going to start to get a little bit repetitive, but I think you can handle it. I want you to put COG A, so cost of goods available, minus cost of goods shush or sold, still here, and then equals cost of goods sold. We're going to put that same equation in again. Cost of goods available for sale. Which number is that? Right, we're not talking about fraud or errors at this point. That's coming later in the chapter. What's our cost of goods available for sale? It's on there. There we go, 14,442. Minus cost of goods still here. What dollar amount is that? I've already calculated it. It was step 6. Minus 2,100. Those two, if you subtract them, will be 12,000. I'll do the math for you here. 342. Holy cow, that's a lot of work, isn't it? Rising prices. It's times of rising prices. We sold the cheap stuff. The old stuff's still here. So as far as an analysis of this, are we going to have a higher or lower net income if we're selling cheap stuff and the expensive stuff still here? Should we play it all out so you can analyze them all? Be a good idea. Okay. Let's move on to FIFO. We're still going to figure out cost of shush and cost of goods sold. We've got our numbers already there. With LIFO, we're selling the expensive stuff, or in this case, the newest stuff. I said that backwards. We're selling the newest stuff. In this case, it's expensive. We still are rocking the 20 still here. So I can put 20 at what price? 97. Because remember, with LIFO, the newest stuff's gone, the oldest stuff is still here, and we calculated what we sold. It's all the blue numbers up here. We sold 6 of the 26. We sold all the 45, all the 20, all the 50, because those are all the newest things. And we whittled it down to the 20 that were left. So 20 at $97 is 1940. Again, we're on repeat here. Cost of goods available minus cost of goods shush equals cost of goods sold. It's still the $14,442. That's bringing down with each of the options. However, the cost of shush this time is quite a bit lower. Oh, I did that one wrong. Now let's talk analysis. Which has the higher cost of goods sold? LIFO. In this case, it were rising prices. The prices were going up. So if we're selling the newer stuff, it's going to have a larger cost of goods sold. If we have a larger cost of goods sold, that's like more expenses to even sell the stuff. If we have more expenses, it will result in a smaller net income. From a federal government perspective, they want our money. But we are not making as much money. LIFO seems to be the option that will reduce net income and reduce what we owe to the federal government in taxes. Go back to your list. Number 8 is pertaining to just, Number 8 is pertaining just to average cost. That's why I have it in its own little phase. To figure out average cost, you take your cost available divided by total units available. This one is seemingly easy. Looks like I'm running out of room here. You guys have room on your sheet, don't you? Okay. I'll just use the blank sheet. So to figure out average with this problem, we first have to do our math. We have to say the 14,442 divided by how many units were available for sale? 141. So we're looking at when it's rounded correctly, 102.43. Okay, so let's think about this a minute. Instead of purchase by purchase, we're selling the new stuff, we're selling the old stuff. Who cares? Let's just average it. Let's take a look at what it costs divided by how many are available. Let's just get an average. So you still are taking the 20 units that are still here. So here's the, still this same process, 20 at, but instead of looking what's our oldest or what's our newest, we're just going to take it at that 102.43, which ends up being writing a little bit big here. And then we still say cost of goods available. Oh. Cost of goods available minus cost of goods shush equals cost of goods sold. The available is still one more time the 14,442 minus what we just calculated. The stuff that's still here to roll into the cost of goods that are gone. 12,393.40. From an analytical standpoint, and that's step 9, the analysis side of things. From an analytical standpoint, during times of rising prices, FIFO will show the smallest cost of goods sold. LIFO will show the largest cost of goods sold, and average is going to be right in between. And some of you did an excellent job explaining that to me in the email that you sent Friday. In times of rising prices, but are rising prices kind of the norm? Like the kind of funny guy on the YouTube video that I showed you, he said that's usually always the case. Prices are going up. Okay, so go update your notes to say step 9 is when you analyze. And this number right here is used throughout. I don't know if you want to highlight that, but that, or circle it for sure. In my notes, I drew big arrows. What do you think? Do you think this is pretty easy to mess up? Do you see where if you get these little numbers flipped, you're going to be in a world of hurt? For a minute, you have to think backwards. FIFO, you're selling the old stuff, the newest is still here, but you have in your head that you're like old, but you have to first do this step to calculate the new stuff that's still here, and then you can talk about the stuff that's gone. So let's try the next one. Go to 6.5. The cool part about 6.5, look at how the numbers are way easier. The numbers are, we're talking $8, $11, $12, which is so much easier. Do you want me to get out of here? Well, do you want me to step out of the driver's seat and you try it, or do you want me to walk you through it? Should I walk you through it but go faster this time? Or do you want to try it on your own? You guys got to tell me. Try it on your own. Hey. That's okay. I'm cool with that. Can at least get you going. I would go through steps 1 through 9. Steps 1 and 2 are done already. We have 90 units, and they're costing us $935. Step 1, step 2 is done. Step 3 says, well, what sold? 65 of them. So I'm going to say minus 65. We, of course, have 25 still here. From a FIFO, LIFO standpoint, break these inventory and purchases into what's gone and what's still here. I'll get out of your way. the math is shown. Again, we've got times of rising prices, so FIFO will be the smallest. LIFO, when you're selling the more expensive stuff, will be the largest. And of course, average is a split between the two. How would this be graded on a test? You know, if you can do some of this without all of my extra chatter on there, great. I would be looking at the cost of goods shush and cost of goods sold. So on a test, I'd be on for FIFO, I'd be grading 300 and 635. On LIFO, I'd be grading 200 and 735. If you don't do all this extra chatter up on the top, so be it. If you can just look at it and call it good, that's great. But I'd worry that you're missing a detail. What questions can I answer? Let's go on to the next one. I'm going to have you do this one on your own as well, except start looking at the top and tell me what's difficult about this one. Look at the top portion of this exercise 6.6, the Coletta Company. Tell me. Go back to your 9-step checklist. Do we have to do number 1 and 2? We do. Take a look at this. June 1st, we had an incoming inventory balance of 200 things. We purchased 2 more times on the 30th. That's shush. So instead of them giving you the total, like here is total available for sale, instead of them doing that, they just told you what's left. So you have to come over here and calc it. 200 plus 400 plus 300 is, of course, 900 available. Minus a number that's sold. They're telling us 100 is shush or still here. It's pretty obvious, but how many sold? 800 sold. Do you see if I would have sent you with this as homework, you would have maybe gotten a little bit confused? They told you after a physical count or someone weighed or someone measured or someone counted, there's 100 left. So this is actually a little tricky. What's our dollar amount or step 2? You know, this was step 1. We had to figure out what was even available, and we had to hunt for that number a little bit. Step number 2 on our 9-step checklist was to figure out the total cost. 1,000 plus 2,400 plus 2,100 is 5,500. So you had to hunt for those numbers this time. I think you can crank this out now that you know what to do. Figure out FIFO LIFO average based on these numbers. Keep in mind we had 900 available, but we sold 800 of them. FIFO, we're selling our oldest stuff. Newest stuff is shush. LIFO, we're selling our new stuff. The oldest is shush. We're in times of rising prices again on here. Why don't you crank these numbers out and I'll give you the totals in a bit. I didn't do the long math here, but I did put the numbers in that you should have arrived at. If this is confusing to you yet, I do have a meeting tomorrow morning, but come in before school and get some help if this is confusing to you. You can, of course, re-watch this recorded lecture, and something might sink in. Or if this is starting to be repetitive and become boring, that means you're getting it, and that makes me happy.